DiMaggio.
Welcome to Quantum Family. We are so excited to be here today. Well, with my host, my co-host, Javier Puga Phillips, who is an author, a realtor, not only in Los Angeles, but also in Portland, Oregon, where he lives with his partner and husband, and is just the most kindest person you'll ever meet. I'm so lucky to work with him. And we are here today with Gayle. Gayle is with us from Maui. She has also lived in California. And my name is Debbie DiMaggio, one of the other hosts of Quantum Family. So today, Gayle, we are so excited to have you. Gayle Barklie of Soul Purpose Maui. Gayle has been in private practice for over 30 years on Maui with clients from around the world. She is a transpersonal psychotherapist, certified clinical hypnotherapist, clinical art therapist. You'll see the art, the blue art is hers, marriage and family counselor, an equine assisted, is that animals?
Equine assisted psychotherapy. Equine is horse.
Well, that's what I thought. Okay.
Yeah.
Assisted psychotherapist. Her areas of focus include resolving and transmuting trauma from present and past lives and interpersonal communication. Gayle earned dual Master of Arts degrees in marriage and family counseling, as well as a clinical art therapy from Loyola Marymount University in California. Her BFA was from Art Center College of Design in California. Gayle is a certified graduate of the Newton Institute of Life Between Lives. She is an animal lover, accomplished artist, and also a contributing author in several publications, Wisdom of Souls, as well as the Stories of the Afterlife of the Michael Newton Institute. Gayle is a co-founder of Neurobehavioral Health Maui, a not-for-profit organization that combines psychohypnotherapy with neurofeedback. Well, wow, you are very accomplished.
Yeah, I was about to say, and of course, I'd like to take a moment but to introduce also our co-host, Debbie DiMaggio. She is an author, she is a realtor, she is most wonderful human being I have able to work with. And of course, Gayle, thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much for your energy. We are blessed to have such a interesting lady like yourself. I was mentioning a little earlier that I am a big fan of the work and life between lives, and I have 150 million questions for you. But first, I would like to know, what are some of the modalities and tools that you use, and what is the most requested method?
Okay. Well, as you mentioned, all of those education and things that I do, marriage and family child counseling, which that means I can do counseling with just anybody, age babies, or actually age 3 has been my youngest, all the way up to about 93. And I really like working with the whole family, not just one person in a family, which is a little unusual for the traditional psychotherapists. But I find that we really heal the whole family. If there's a problem, if one person has a problem, it's not just theirs, it's everybody in that family. And if we can all be working with the same healing tools, then we're going to get there so much faster. So there's the psychotherapy, but then there's the hypnotherapy. And it is one of the most asked for. Both the hypnotherapy, past life, and lives between lives regression work is the most popular. And the reason why, modality, first of all, the definition of modality basically means the tool or the or the mode of which we are doing the work. So the modalities are, like you mentioned, equine assisted psychotherapy, working with horses, and that one's really amazing. I have to sort of stand back and let the horse do the job, because this is not horseback riding. Even though I've done therapy horseback riding with people, that's not what equine assisted psychotherapy is. Equine assisted, I also call it EAP for short. EAP is much easier to say. EAP is using the horse to help reflect back what the human is not able to get in touch with. And I could talk the whole time on that. You could ask me other questions on that if you want to know more about it, but I want to stick with that first question that you asked about modalities. So I've got the art, which is not just for artists, but it can be for artists. So if I have an artist that's in a professional artist that's in a block and they can't seem to get past it, I'm really going to be doing subconscious work with them, figuring out what's blocking them from their next level. Because I have the art background, I've been an artist all my life since I was a child. I'm actually a third generation artist. And then I went to school for it and got all kinds of wisdom, which blocked me. And it took me years to get through the trauma of art school, which is a whole nother story, another episode we could talk about. But having those skills, I can work with the layman artist, somebody that's never touched a pencil, all the way to a professional, because for the first category, we're really not trying to make art as much as letting the materials be the modality of how the thoughts and beliefs are coming out. The latter is helping somebody with a block in art.
Well,
So
awesome. Well, like we're saying, you are a very talented artist. On that note, I want everybody to know that the background I'm using today is courtesy and art from Gayle. And when I saw it, I was like, this is just gorgeous. But please, Debbie, go ahead with the next question.
I want to know about, I want to go back to the horses eventually, but we have so many questions. So let's go on to the next. What are the biggest misconceptions about your work in hypnotherapy? Because
okay,
good.
Yeah, there are a lot. Okay, first of all, hypnosis is something that we all do on a daily basis.
Wow.
That being said, let me answer your first question. Biggest concerns. Somebody will come in and say, can you make me cluck like a chicken? And I'm like, no, not unless you really want to. We have media that is dramatizations of everything. And the whole purpose of movies and stage hypnosis is to have a good show. The big difference between hypnosis and hypnotherapy is the word therapy. When a client comes into me and says, hey, I have this issue, something as simple as I don't want to smoke anymore, or something bigger like I keep attracting sociopaths into my life, that's a really serious issue. We can address these things in the subconscious mind. And so they come in with an issue. We have a place that we're heading towards, a focus, a goal. And I'm very much a goal-oriented therapist. I want results. And if I have somebody that's lazy and they're just there for fun, they're going to get results, and then they'll finally thank me after we're done, because I get to it. Wow. So some of the fundamental fundamental beliefs. People think that in hypnosis I can change their fundamental beliefs, and that's a big fallacy. I work with people of every different religious denomination, almost every. I've had clients of almost every religious belief and belief system. This work does not tell you what you should be or who you shouldn't be. I work with the issues that you bring in, and we resolve those. So it's very personalized.
So do you help people who have, like, someone's going through a divorce and they're having trauma, in real estate? Javier and I've been practicing real estate for many years, and we've worked with a lot of people under a lot of stress, right?
Absolutely.
So help people forget when they've had a bad breakup, or how do you help them?
Well, we process it. We go back and source it. All of our current life traumas in relationships, in communication, really have been a mirror of what really happened back when you were a child. How we approach this world as adults was formed between in utero and age 8.
Wow. That's
Wow.
incredible.
It's pretty darn amazing. And sometimes people go, I don't think I believe that. And 99.9% of the time, I take them back to that first memory that is during that time period. So basically, the concept is our conscious mind can handle, our conscious mind is what we're doing right now, right? We know how to push the buttons and all of that stuff and make sure that we look good and stuff like that. Our conscious mind can handle 5 to 7 bits of information per second. Our subconscious mind, do you want to take a guess at how many bits of information it can handle per second?
Millions, I guess.
40,000.
40,000, yeah.
You know, I'm sure there's a lot of different theories that have different numbers, but the one that I was taught was 40,000, and that's a whole lot more than 5 to 7.
It is.
And
In perspective, yes.
Yeah. It's constantly feeding back that information to us. So as I'm sitting here talking to you, my conscious mind is making sure that you know, this materials are working properly. My subconscious mind hears the chickens and goes, oh yeah, the chickens are a quarter of a mile away. My subconscious mind knows what the temperature is. It has memories of people that might look or feel like one of you 2 interviewers. It has all different things that it's giving me information on. And let's say I had an issue with an aunt that loved the color pink. And because Debbie's background is pink, I might be a little bit nervous about her if I hadn't processed through those issues with my aunt. And so I think your original question was, I always go off on tangents, but I usually come back. Your original question was about helping people process contemporary today issues. Yes, that's what people come in with, is today's issues. I help them go back and source it to childhood and then bring that healing back to the present and then get their clarity about their future. So it's really like, we're in the moment, we go to the past, go to the future. And we're constantly creating what we truly want in our reality.
And are they
amazing.
under hypnotized during this process?
Yes. So you're going to love the answer on this one. The answer is yes. There are different levels of being hypnotized or under. The best work is worked in the theta stage, which is just above sleep, which when we look at the person laying on the couch, relaxed, their body is asleep, but their mind's eye is clear and crisp and listening to their inner voice and intuition. It's very receptive, and I know what to program in because they've told me. If it was like they didn't want to smoke, I know to program that in. If they said, you know, that they want better relationship, and I know how they want a better relationship, I help bring that in. But the person is interacting with me the whole time. They're talking to me. They're talking at a quieter or slower or lower, and sometimes their voice even changes type of voice. But they are not gone. And if they do check out a little bit, I bring them back. And with over 30 years of experience, I can recognize most of the time if somebody's starting to check out. And I can ask a question like, tell me what you're noticing right now, which will bring back where they disappeared to. And that's valuable, valuable information. When somebody goes off on we call it a tangent, that's not a waste. We just want to get in there with them and hear what it is, because it's good, juicy information that will help us heal what's going on.
Wow, that's
so it's like,
so interesting.
It's like following threads. I'm constantly pulling threads from different aspects of their realities in the current life or past lives, all at the same time.
May I ask what actually brought you to this, lead you to this career path? How did you end up doing this? Because it's
oh my gosh,
fascinating to me.
It's kind of a long story, but
We
it
got time.
starts out, we got time. Okay, good. Starts out with childhood. I came into this world really fast. I was 2 weeks late and 45 minutes in labor. And so I basically ran my own show from the very beginning, my poor parents. I sat back and I analyzed my parents. And I felt like I observed human beings most of my life. And I felt like I was kind of like an alien. And I didn't understand why these humans, my parents, they were together for their 28 years till one passed. They didn't know how to communicate with each other. And I just kept observing this and going, you're saying things that's going to upset him, and he's saying things that are going to upset you. Why can't you guys just say nice things? And so I had this kind of foundation. And I also had a little bit odd something, but they didn't quite know what it was. And I resonated. My place of safety was with animals and with art. So I could communicate with animals. Animals would talk to me and I could understand them and they understood me. So I always had a few pets, but anywhere we went in the world, like we'd go on a family vacation, I'd come back with animals. And like my parents were like, where'd you get that dog? Where'd you get that horse? You got to take it back. And I just show up with animals. And if I ever had trauma, and this went right into my adult years, if I ever had trauma, I would find an animal or an animal would find me. I'm going for a walk. I'm mad at you. I remember this. I was in my late 20s and I was mad at my boyfriend. I was on another island. I didn't know where I was. I was out of there. I went for a walk. I went around a corner and there was a horse in a pasture. I'm like, oh, thank you. I went down and I just started loving on the horse and talking with the horse. And I came back into my center. Mm-hmm. And that's what animals do for a lot of us. And for me, they assisted me in communication. And that built my career on animal understanding and communication, which wraps back into the therapy that I do. Sometimes I get dog clients, troubled dogs, and I go to their house and the dog says, yeah, I did just pee on the floor over there, but you should see what those two are doing.
Come on, can you really get, I mean, you can't really talk to the dogs. I mean, the animals. How do you explain that a little bit?
I don't, it's hard to explain, but sometimes I actually hear them saying stuff and I'll respond to them in a sentence as if he just said that sentence to me. I'll just go, shh, I know what they're doing. You play dog, I'll play therapist. I'll get them into therapy. You stop peeing on the floor and let's pee outside. Okay. Okay, great. And I make the agreement with the dog and then I start working on the people. Sometimes it's a gut feeling. And this relates, the question you just asked is the same in, somebody asked me just the other day if I was psychic. And I don't like to use the term psychic because if you do, then clients will come to you and say, read me and tell me what I'm supposed to do in life. And I'm like, that's not my job. My job is to assist you. My job is to take what you bring to the table, ask you questions, even if I do see it, hear it, or feel it. I usually do get those messages in some way. Sometimes it's a little visual, like I can see you in a past life in a red dress. I'm not going to say you're in a past life in a red dress and you're 5 years old. I will say, let's look at, what do you see? What are you wearing? And then you'll say, I'm in a red dress, and I'll go, I do have those little moments, I enjoy that.
I love it. Oh my gosh.
It just reminded me of one of my favorite memories of one of my clients that I didn't put down in my notes. So I want to share it with you right now. I had a client and he was in his 70s and he was an engineer and he was one of the most scholarly Christians I'd ever met, knew all of everything. And he's in a regression and I'm taking him to a happy memory and it's at a ballpark and he's playing baseball, and I see him eating a hot dog. So I actually see him there. And so I asked him a question. I said, oh, so, tell me a little bit more. And what are you eating? And he refuses to answer the question. I'm like, okay, I'll let that go. And then at the session is over, and we're debriefing after. I always like kind of go over once somebody comes out of hypnosis. So I go into the details, and it's really important because they don't remember some of the things until I ask them a question or mention it. And then they're like, oh my gosh, yes. And then they go, blah, 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 and they're telling me all this stuff that they got out of it. But I had to trigger that memory in the conscious state so that they would take it forward. But I said to him, so, what did you, I felt some resistance or something to that effect. And he goes, well, yeah, you asked me what I was eating, and I didn't want to answer you. And I said, okay, well, why? And he goes, well, I was eating a hot dog. And I went, I know that. and he goes, I didn't want to tell you because then I thought you'd ask me the next question, which was there ketchup or mustard on it? And we both just started laughing because he knew, he saw the same, we both saw the same thing. And it wasn't even important. It was just to get him into that memory and the feeling. Because when we want to make transformation in present day events, especially in traumatic events, we need to get our subconscious mind into that safe, happy place.
Yes.
So the first tool that I do with clients is take them to that safe, happy place. And I give them tools to remember that and homework that builds on top of that. So even if somebody comes in, and it's tempting, if a client comes in and they're in major trauma, they've just broken up with their wife or their boyfriend, and they're in a lot of trauma, it's tempting to let them just go into the trauma. But the most therapeutic thing for me to do is get them to visit the happy place, even if it's just for a few minutes, so that we can anchor it in, and then they are able to use that as a tool for healing from that point on.
Well, that leads us to the next question. How did you learn about past life regression and life between lives?
Okay. My master's degree is in marriage and family child counseling and clinical art therapy. Very, very, very technical. Not my personality. I am an artist first. I'm creative and flowing and all of that. But one of the most amazing things, you're required to do something like 2,000 hours of internship, being a professional therapist, and you're required to do 1 to 2 years of your own personal psychotherapy throughout those years. And it was kind of open-ended. And my thought was, try a variety of different therapies and see what you get. So I had my traditional therapist, and then I did some training in regression work, which I didn't really know what that was going to be. And I ended up doing my own personal work. And in it, I spontaneously went into a past life experience, regression. And that past life regression that I saw, which before that point, I wouldn't have believed it. I'm like, what are you talking about, past lives? And it just wasn't in it. As for most of us, until we experience it, we don't get it. But that past life, that first one I saw, I had the most profound healings. I had a chronic shoulder problem for, I'm going to say, probably about 5 years at that point. And the medical industry was not doing anything good except for giving me medication and trying to diagnose some mental cause. They're kind of right, but they didn't get to what it really is. And seeing that past life trauma healed the shoulder 80% from that one visit. Wow. And then the other 20% drifted away over the next few months of my continued work and processing, taking responsibility and healing and transforming from that point on. And then the first the only time that I had a problem with that shoulder again was about 3 years later in a relationship. And I realized that the trauma that represented was not this man that I was in the relationship with, but he was representing the space of my father, who that trauma was with in present life and that previous past life. So I was able to tie all of these different elements from past, present, and present together, and then once again healed the shoulder.
Wow.
So those are the kind of things that excite me about doing this work. So long story short, that was like 30 something years ago. I continued to train with that trainer for about 3 to 4 years. And then I moved to Hawaii and I started working at the prison and doing crisis outreach. And I worked with suicidal, homicidal, mentally ill people. And regression work would pop up a little bit, but not like my primary practice. And about 3 or 4 years later, all of a sudden it was the most important thing. It just came into a new evolution. And that's when I went off and studied at the Michael Newton Institute and really got extra, the next level up. I would call it the master's level of past life and lives between lives transformation therapy.
Wow, well, that's
So,
amazing because I'm personally a big fan of Michael Newton's work. Actually, when I reflect myself, when I have some time alone, I love to put in my audiobook and just listen to it. One of the things that really stood out was to me, it was about soul contracts, and how amazing a soul contract is. And I can totally say that the first time I saw David DiMaggio, I remember just feeling this instant connection. It's like, I don't know what am I gonna do with her, but we are going to do something. It was this attraction. I'm not talking about sexual attraction. I'm talking about this soul attraction, pure love. So I fall in love with her just looking at her. Can you just talk a little bit about soul contracts?
Oh my gosh, I always joked about my babies. I have 2 boys that are now 25 and 26, and that they sat up in heaven, in baby heaven, and which is the same place as what you're talking about. And it's also the place that we call lives between lives. That's where we assess, how did I do in the last life, and what am I going to do in the next life, and what do I want to take forward, and who is my soul group that is going to be assisting me. And we make these soul contracts. I don't think we have a soulmate. I think we have soul groups. And we make agreements. So these soul contracts could be, hey, I need to work on forgiveness. This is my issue that I brought forth from this last lifetime, and I need to work on forgiveness. Would you do it with me? And you go, sure, because we're souls. And as souls, everything is a lot lighter and easier. It's not, we don't have these physical bodies that ache and have problems. We are light, and time flies pretty fast. And our goal is to work on issues. So our soul's purpose is to evolve. So we make this agreement, and you say, yeah, sure, I'll help you with forgiveness. And I say, great. And we come down to this earth, we are born, and it turns out that you're my cousin. And for some reason, you just are always picking on me, and you're always, giving me a hard time. But we are really tight, and we know we have to be together. And so it's this crazy give and take and push and pull. And you are there to harass me, to teach me about forgiveness. It's something to that effect.
Wow. And since we're in this subject, do the clients have to be with you, or this kind of work, can this be done remotely, or how does that work?
Oh, well, before COVID, I had about 25 to 30% of my clients remotely. And so I've been doing it that way for a long time. And I had a lot of clients that like lived in New York and would do remote hypnotherapy and then come to Hawaii to do the intensive past life and lives between lives session. The past life is usually about 2 hours. The lives between lives session is usually about 4 hours.
Oh.
So that was pre-COVID. During COVID, I went to 99% virtual, and I had all my clients that way. And I really got doing the more intense long sessions virtually as well. So now I have probably about 75% of my clients long distance and 25 in person. So I can do any of the work long distance. I was going to say except for the equine assisted psychotherapy, but I could set that up too. If the person had a horse in their place and we could do video or whatever, we probably could make that work. But that's the only one I don't think I've done long distance. And I have clients all over the world, about 6 countries right now, and about 8 states as well. So
speaking of clients, that's the next question.
Oh, yes.
Well, it sounds super fascinating that you have people from, like you said, all cultures and backgrounds and from all over the world. What are some of your most memorable, other than the hot dog story, which I love. I don't understand how you can see him. You're out here and he's there and you're getting into his mind. Like, I'm still blown away by that. But what are some of your most memorable client stories?
Okay. I've got a couple to share with you. One of them, I'm in a business networking group called BNI, and it's an international. It's in 36 countries, and it's been around forever. I'm sorry. That's how we met, right? 76 countries and 36 years. One of my colleagues was, I don't know how she got involved in it, but she hosted 14 kids from the Cyprus island. And if you know anything about Cyprus, it's an island that basically has been civil war divided in half. And northern and southern Cyprus people basically think the other one is their enemy. And this program was to heal that. And so they annually take a handful of kids, half of them from south and half of them from north, partner them together and send them on a trip together. And the trip, it's been different places, but they basically were in Hawaii for a few weeks. And she put it out there that this group of kids was coming. And I said, I'll put together a program. And so I got to do art therapy and equine assisted psychotherapy with this group of teenagers. And it was so awesome. And they were able to just take that energy home with them. And the horses, the equine was just amazing because the horses helped communicate and heal and transform beliefs. And these kids were bonded together. And I had a couple kids that were terrified of horses, and they had to move through that. And their partner, who was the enemy, from the other side of the country, was the one that was holding their hand and comforting them and letting them know it was safe. They were probably blindfolded, knowing me. I always like to make things really interesting. And so that was one of mine that I absolutely loved getting to. It felt like an honor and a privilege. And because of my immense background, I had the skills to work with all of those kids. So that one was a really good one.
Crazy stories, anything that's like what is so far-fetched, hard for us to get our heads around.
Yeah. There are, and I'm going to tell you about one that Debbie, I know you're going to have to, and Javier, you're going to have to be able to handle one aspect of it, but I'm going to tell it anyways because it was really good and it keeps evolving. I have a client that's 11 years. The first session she had was 11 years ago, and we had a basic session. It was, I think, the intro, getting her in touch with her happy place. And one of the things I do at the end of the session is I always check in. I go, okay, and I'm going to be counting down from 1 to 5. And before I do that, is there anything else? And that question is there anything else that needs to be said or heard before I wrap up the session? That brings up, and therapists call it the golden 5 minutes. And it's the last 5 minutes that the true juice comes out of what's going on in their lives. So I asked this question and she goes, well, yeah, now that you ask it. And now, mind you, it had been a very peaceful session where actually, I rode my horse to the park and met her there, and she laid on my horse blanket, and the horse was over us. The dog was over there for that session. It was so awesome. I wish we had a drone picture of it because it was so wonderful. So I asked her this question, and she says, I have a fear that I can't open my eyes. And I said, oh, that's interesting. She goes, yeah, I was like 20 years ago hypnotized by a student. The person was in training, and ever since then I had this fear I can't open my eyes. And as somebody that's been trained in hypnosis, I knew exactly where that came from, because it's one of the very, very old school statements that they start training from. They say that, but that therapist hadn't removed that statement by the end of the therapy session.
Oh.
So this false belief had been left there, and it had been an issue for her. So I'm like, oh, no problem. And I just sort of said a few great things to her subconscious mind and erased it. And it was gone. So she came back. I ran into her. And then she had another session. A couple weeks later. And she said, this is the part you're not going to like, Debbie, but you just have to hold on to this. There's mold in my house and I'm not moving and I can't change it. So what do I do with this? And I said, oh, well, then we'll make friends with it. And I talked with her subconscious mind and said, this mold's going to live there in the closet. It's not going to bother you. It's going to stay over there in its own place. And you're going to be able to, move through life and not have a problem with it. She stayed in the house for several more years. She had a roommate that moved out because of having mold problems. And she came back. This was then about 7 years later. She came back and she goes, Gayle, I just wanted to remind you of 2 things that you really helped me with. And it was the eyes. She never had a problem with the eyes not opening again. And she goes, I know I lived in that house with mold and I never got any illness. And you helped me make friends with it. So sometimes there's things in life that we can't change. And we have to just, normally if you came to me and said, hey, can we make friends with mold? I'm like, well, no, I should just get rid of it. But she couldn't change it. She didn't want to move. And she made friends with it and never had a problem with it since.
Wow.
So then fast forward to recently, she lost her partner of 20 something years. She was having a lot of grief and a lot of sadness and a lot of guilt. And we did some healing therapy. We traced some of it back to childhood, back to mom and dad, did a lot of healing and some past life stuff. And I gave her permission to be in love with herself and to give and receive love. And then a week or so later, she called me up and she goes, I'm going to tell you because I can't tell anybody else because it's too soon. Our society thinks it's too soon. But guess what? I'm in love. And she said, if I hadn't had that session, I would not have been able to let myself be open to receive love. And the grief work and relieving it and giving her permission to be in a state of love really made all the difference in the world. So that one just made me practically cry, because we all should be in love at every stage of our lives throughout life. If it's, with ourselves, with our animals, with our art, with another human being, there's no there's no good reason to be deprived of love.
I could not agree more with you. I have always say, that one of our life purposes is actually to give and receive love. We are here to love. When people ask, why is my life purpose? I was like, sometimes it's like, it's so easy and so simple that if we concentrate more time doing it and less time thinking about it, things will be just way easier for everybody. On that note, I can hear how rewarding the type of work you do, So can you talk a little bit about the rewarding aspects that you have done with your work?
Yeah. It's those aha moments, when you see somebody that's coming in and they're struggling and they're just heartbroken, or they're just dealing with stuff and they're really struggling. And when I help them get to that realization where you see that light bulb go off in their head and they just have those aha moments, it's like, oh, transformation. So those very rewarding. I had a teenage client not too long ago who was really hurting herself, some abusive behaviors, and she was able to transform through those and just really came through beautifully. It took a few months, and her mom said, okay, well, it's time to cut back, probably money, but time, all of those reasons. And so I said, no problem, I'm always here for you. The young lady every once in a while would reach out and text me, and I just send a little text back, because she's a teenager, you just send a picture back and everybody's happy. And when she had problems again, she was able to say, I need to see Gayle again, and reach out. And that's actually happened a couple different times where I'm seeing her, then she goes away for a while and comes back, and seeing that life transformation. And knowing that they can keep coming back. So that reminds me of another one, which was basically multi-generations. I've been a therapist for multi-generations. So I had a young lady who was in her 20s, came and started doing work with me. She did some good therapy work. She grew up a little bit. She had a child. I saw the child when she was about 3, and then they were gone again. And then I saw the child at 6, and then did some work with her then, and then she was gone again. And then I'm referred a young man, and I start doing some therapy with him. This young man heals and gets through his issues and is able to propose, and then it becomes the husband, and then the teenager comes back again, and now I'm working with a teenager, and she's sharing life stuff. And I know what's happened in her childhood, and I know what happened with her parents. So I have all of these things that I'm tying together and bringing the healing process together. So that is very rewarding.
Family is very lucky to have you. I mean, can you imagine all the families and all the things, especially during the holidays, that go on, and you
Yes.
totally
Yes.
have, like, you manage that whole family for generations. That's incredible.
And to me, like, I'll get a message from a client, I'm at a holiday party and I'm freaking out. And I'm like, okay, let's calm it down. Remember your tools. And now what can we learn about that? And I always, even if I think dad's a jerk, because sometimes they are, I help that client bring compassion in and see dad as a little child and see why he is a jerk. And when they're able to give dad compassion, all of a sudden dad's not as much of a jerk.
That's
Yeah.
so helpful. That leads me to the next question. What are some of your favorite tools and techniques, just like the one you just shared? That is pretty. So people will call you during a party and say, help me, and you're able to just right away give them something to work with. That's amazing.
This basic tool, you'll see me do it a couple times. As I talk to you and you get in touch with, for just a second, take a nice deep breath in, out breath, letting go, breathing in, imagining a beautiful golden white healing light coming down on your head and moving on down. And everywhere this light touches, it brings a sense of health and peace and ease and safety. The out breath, letting go of what no longer serves you, dropping it into the compost. We love our compost. Compost is not garbage. Compost transmutes. It changes the old thing, banana peel, into nutrients for your fuel and flowers and food for the future. So this is a foundation. For just a second, I want you to identify a happy memory. Close your eyes for a second. See that happy memory. As soon as you have it, give me a little nod of your head, because it doesn't have to be super big. It doesn't have to be profound. Just a happy memory. Breathe into it. Let it get bigger. Your body remembers everything on a cellular level. So as you're letting that happy memory get larger and larger, your body is feeling it. You might start smiling. You might start laughing, and you might even start crying because that memory is getting so big. Now we're going to squeeze the fingers, the first finger and thumb. If you did yoga, it'd be the Gyan Mudra. The neuroreceptors in your fingertips remember this. And this is the foundation for the future. Every time you need a little boost in life, you need to feel better, a lift me up or a calm me down. You squeeze your fingers, you take 3 deep breaths, just like you're doing right now, and you hear your word. Your word might be gratitude. It might be peace. It might be forgiveness, but that is your word that will remind you of this feeling. And you breathe. And you can open your eyes when you're ready. So that was a really fast version of what I do in my first session with every client.
It's amazing how relaxed I got so quickly.
Yeah. You were able to drop in and see a memory, right?
Right away.
I heard the memory. I was hearing this is amazing.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that's a really good point. You said you heard and you said you saw. Some of us are visual, some are auditory, some are kinesthetic, some are olfactory. Everybody has a different dominant sense. But when we were talking about the subconscious mind, it anchors in everything. It anchors in everything to keep you safe. I do air quotes a lot. To keep you safe, it remembers things. And each of us have a dominant one. I always test in that first session with my client to see what their dominant sense organ is. And that will help. Like, let's say, Javier, you couldn't see anything. And all I kept doing is saying, see the so-and-so, see the so-and-so. And you're like, I can't see anything. You know, you're going to get frustrated. But if I explored and found out that you were auditory and you could hear the story, or you could sense it, like we can have hearing where we hear a sentence. Like sometimes the dogs, I can hear a sentence. Other times I just get this really strong feeling of, oh, the dog is feeling scared because blah, blah, blah. Those senses are what helps us navigate through our brain. You know, and that's where we get our resolution, our healing.
Said a couple things. First, with whatever you said, the first off, I went to a vision of me very content, because I'm always all over the place. And so I had a very content photo in my mind in St. Bart's when I was actually sitting and content and, you know, not stressed about something. And then you said something about, you might have said, or if you hear, or then you said something that made me think of laughter or sound or something. So then I went to another place in St. Bart's where we were just belly laughing, which, yes. And so then I was there all during the exercise. It was, yeah.
So let's say you have a stressful moment next week. Not even tomorrow, just next week. We're all laughing because we know it's going to happen in an hour, but that's okay. In that moment, if you can do this and just breathe, your body on a cellular level is going to take you back to St. Bart's and that belly laughing. And it's going to bring you into a place of a homeostasis so your brain can think and make the right choices.
That's great.
It's as simple as that. It's just pretty crazy.
That is crazy. I'm going to be using that tool a lot.
It's a great tool to have, you know. It's easy. Oh, it's easy. It's our fingertips, you know. And
It's always with you. You don't lose it.
That's the best part, you know. So I see that you help a lot of people. You've been in a lot of people's life, you know, and you probably have seen a lot of transformations of people who think they're having transformations. Can you tell us how do somebody get a true transformation?
Okay. Well, you have to know what you want.
Mm-hmm.
You have to believe it's going to happen. And then you have to act in accordance to that. So you come in and you have an issue and you say, hey, this is my problem. Okay. Where do we want to go? Where do I want to be? And then we can work in the subconscious mind and we can fortify that. We can resolve what's blocking you from that, because sometimes people know what they want to be, but something keeps blocking them. And that's when we have to go back and do different exercises to find out what it is that's blocking them. One of the exercises I do with people is money beliefs. And money beliefs really equate to fundamental survival beliefs. So, you know, if you keep sabotaging yourself from the next career, it's probably going back to a deservingness belief from childhood, sometimes past lives. But we stack it. So we have different exercises to get through those blocks and then where we're going to go. But you have to actually put in the intention. Our mind is extremely powerful. If I say I want to do blah, 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 stop smoking, but I'm not doing it for me. I'm doing it for the doctor. I'm doing it for my mother. She wants me to stop smoking. Okay, that's not going to get anywhere. I'm going to sabotage it. I have to have a reason why I want to stop smoking. And I have to see why I started smoking in the first place. What was the reason why I started doing this thing? And if I can talk to the subconscious mind and say, well, let's say the reason was because it let me be social. Everybody I know smoked. Then we can find other ways to let the subconscious mind feel safe being social. Or just the opposite. Some people smoke so they can have a break and go off and be by themselves and be antisocial. Okay, we can now tell the subconscious mind there's safe ways that you can take a break and move away from humans without smoking. You know, and so it's all about talking to the subconscious mind, because its job is to keep us safe. That's all it cares about. It's a subconscious mind, the ego, safety.
Awesome.
It's reminding me of one other story. Can I tell you another story?
Please share.
Okay. I had a lady in her 40s come in and she was terrified of dogs and she was allergic to lavender. She just couldn't stand the smell of lavender. And for most of us, that's like, oh, those are two bad things to have a problem with, because they're my favorites. So I said, okay, well, let's go do some research. And we went and started doing a regression, and we went back and we landed at the age of 3, where she's walking down the street, holding her mom's hand, having a nice sunny day, and it's pretty. And they're walking along, and all of a sudden, a dog comes running out, barking. And she had told me she'd never been bit or seen anybody be bit. So she didn't have a real good reason to be so terrified of dogs. But here she is, 3 years old, walking with mom, and the dog comes running out, and there's a fence, and the dog's just barking hard, and they both get really scared. They jump, they land in the bushes. What kind of bushes are they? Lavender. And with lavender, you just touch the leaves of lavender and the smell comes off. And so there, there's like all this lavender. Mom was so scared. She had a thought in her head. She didn't say it out loud. She just thought, this dog is going to eat my baby. And she's sort of like Seinfeld, right? And so mom thinks the thought is transmuted to the child, because all the way up until about the age of 8, kids are psychic with their parents. And they literally can read each other's minds. I have another story on that, but we'll see if we have time. So the child thinks, I'm going to get eaten when she hears the auditory, the dog barking, and when she smells the lavender, she's going to die, because that was the subliminal message that was transmuted to her. So when we were able to see that whole little scenario, we were able to just, I do this magic eraser, we were able to change all of it, giving the fear into the compost, knowing that when dogs bark doesn't necessarily mean they're dangerous, healing mom. And wow, lavender actually helps when you get a scratch. If you put lavender on it, it makes it feel better. And, we just shifted everything. And that lady got over being afraid of dogs, and she got over not liking the smell of lavender.
That's a pretty significant change. That is amazing, because that would be hard to get them. Dogs are everywhere. You'd go around being terrified your whole life.
Right. Well, the statistics say that something like 90-something% of our allergies are psychosomatic. It started in the brain. So if we can go back in and heal that first belief of why that thing was bad for us, most of the time we can heal that ailment.
Well, I will be referring my sister-in-law to you, because she is allergic to absolutely everything. And if she could get help, she's been trying to get help in so many ways. And I guess it's pretty torturous. And I am definitely going to have her call you, because I would
Wonderful.
be amazed. That would just be incredible. I didn't know
Wonderful.
that.
Yeah.
That is spectacular.
Good.
That's amazing. So you are very busy, and I can't imagine you have more goals, but what are your plans for the next 3 years?
Oh, I love that question, because it forces me to actually step into it.
Yeah.
When we make that verbal commitment, it makes us move into it. So my next 3 years, well, one is the book that I'm currently have been working on. It's going to be published by then. And once that first book gets published, I'm sure there's going to be several more, because I'm constantly creating more. And it is about case studies of the work that I do. And at the end of each chapter, the main tool that person learned, and then how can you apply it to your life. So it's case studies and / workbook. So that'll be done.
How many tools are there? Are there 5 or 10 or 100? Are there lots of tools that you could give people?
Yeah, it's very personal. Wow. So a tool that you might use might not work for Javier, and vice versa. The modalities I also call tools.
Okay.
So depending on the person and the situation, that might be one of the tools that we use. For one person, taking art into their life might be their tool. Yeah. So, okay, so there's that. The book, my healing ranch, my big picture, and I've done all kinds of things around this and things that would qualify as it, but in my heart, it's not finished. My big picture, my true purpose, is going to be a healing retreat ranch when I made my notes, I put 3 circles, and I'm like, oh yeah, maybe that is, 3 circles. I have been this is this is ancient. It's from the Maasai tribe, and it's made out of silver, and it's my totem shape is a spiral. All of my artwork moves into the center. I did a series of mandalas. Everything is about going into the center. So the circle, the 3-circle ranch, we'll probably end up calling it. One is the round pen, and a round pen for horses is about 60 feet across. And it's where you do your therapy. It's where you do your training. It's where you interact with your horse. It's enough space that the horse can be free and move, but not to get away. And then he can meet up and join up and bond with you. It's where we can have a couple different horses, a couple different people in it. It's where we could put the people inside the round pen and the horse outside if I have somebody that's super scared of horses and we need to, it's that protective boundary. It's that bubble. Anyways, the first round pen has a roof so that I can work day and night and rain or shine, and be safe and be in there with the horses. So I've got that one. I have another one that would be considered like the healing center, which would be for yoga and any kind of spiritual transformation practice. And then the third one would be the art studio, also a circle, and people can come and make art with me. I do all kinds of, this painting is an oil painting and encaustic. Encaustic is liquid hot wax. And it's one of the oldest forms of art, back from 600 AD. And it's just 2 of the modalities of art that I like to do. So that art studio would have all the different art materials, and you can come and visit me and we can make art, go play with the horses. We can go do yoga and meditate, and all of that's right there. That's
the chills because Javier and I have a friend whose ranch is, it's not, I guess it's not technically a ranch because it's not as big as a ranch would be, but it has a beautiful, I call it a ranch, but stables, 2 houses on the property. It's exactly, and as you were talking and we were talking about the equine, one night I sat there, she was taming a wild horse, and I literally sat there till dark. It was dark when I finally got up to move, and the horse was going around, and she was in the ring going just very softly, and the horse was just going around and around, and I just sat there and watched and watched and watched. And our friend Michael Martin, who knows me very well, was like, I've never seen Debbie sit still. So I felt like it was definitely therapeutic. This ranch is beautiful. It's outside of Portland, and it's incredible, and you should definitely go visit Barbara.
Oh, I want to.
It was so hard for me though, because I fell in love with those horses, and she was, it's also, she has to make money, and she was taking care of a couple. I got really attached to this one horse, and then she sold him, and I'm like, oh, don't sell.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't keep them all. I mean, she had a lot she was taking care of, but I'm way too sensitive for that, because if it's in my orbit, it's like it's part of my family.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that we have to learn, to be able to be in that state of love and know people and animals are going to transform, transcend, move on, and we're going to love again. Because I've had people that come to me and go, oh, I can't have a dog, and I'm like, why? And she goes, well, I once had a dog that I loved, and I can never love it again. And I am of the theory, I'm going to love, love, love. And, if it's for a day or if it's going to be for a decade, either way, I'm going to love it. And then if he's going to be gone, and then I'll love another. And I'd rather be in that state than the pain state of lack of love.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow, this has been a very therapeutic conversation for myself. I literally just felt lighter when you last words. I cannot thank you enough for your time, for being here with us. And I think something before we wrap up, which is very, very important, is how can anybody or somebody who wants to work on themselves can reach you?
Oh, well, my website, the name of it is the same as my business and the same as my email. I made things really simple, and it came in one of my sessions with a client. It was time to do some transformation of my business, and I said, and all of a sudden I heard the name, and it was Soul, your soul, SOUL, purpose, and then where I live, Maui. So soulpurposemaui.com is the best way. You can see my website, and my email is soulpurposemaui@gmail.com. And it's just the best way to get a hold of me. I think you might have an advertisement that has all my contact information on. We can put up on the screen as well so people can see it.
We'll do for sure, and we're gonna make sure also that we have all your links,
Okay,
on the
good.
description. But just want to make sure, I want to encourage everybody, we are in this journey together, and one of the things that I'm gonna keep from here and from this conversation is the word love, the importance of love, how important it is to love. So let's just keep giving love, 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 and just share the love among us.
Thank you both so much for having me. This was just wonderful. And I know I could talk for a whole nother hour, but this has just been lovely. And I appreciate what you're both doing in your program and how many people it's probably touching all around the world. So thank you for putting this together.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.